As you build a business, start small. You have a big dream, start small, finish big. And so I think too many people try to go at it too hard and fast.
G'day, I'm Charly, your online business manager and WordPress expert. Today is an interview day. Hopefully you have all been watching along with my daily episodes and you've been enjoying those. I do like to bring experts on every now and again so that you get a different voice other than mine and hopefully a different face other than mine to look at. Today I have Hugh Massie and he's going to be talking to us about DNA in business. Now, I'm not going to tell you much more about that. I'm going to let Hugh introduce himself and then we're going to get into it. So Hugh, thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it.
No problem, Charly. Great to be with you. And so g'day to everybody. Even though I live in Atlanta, Georgia, I am, originally from Sydney, so it's great to be talking with you, Charly, and hear an Aussie accent, and hopefully some of the listeners today are Aussies as well. And so a little bit about my background. While I work in human behavior right now, I started life as a chartered accountant in Sydney. But in in the course of my career as a chartered accountant, I was always trying to. This was sort of an innate, intuitive thing, customize the experience for all of my clients. So, I was responsible for writing quite complex tax advice at times, but I knew that there were people out there that just wanted the bottom line solution in a diagram. This is what I've got to do. And there'd be somebody else, though, in the same company would want to read the 50 pages of diatribe that I had to write in the research. So I learned to figure out how to sort of almost produce 2 or 3 documents for the one solution, so that people who wanted it short and sharp got it that way, and those who wanted it, long and detailed like an engineer would, they got it a different way. And then, you have to talk about in there how you're going to manage risk, and everybody wants to avoid tax, but really, have they got the stomach to even think about it or do it or, do something? Most people not. So I learned to do all of that. And then at about 30 years old, after 10 years of that, I decided I had enough of the corporate world and I needed to do something for myself. So I went out and built a wealth management firm. And it was in that journey that I started to see more clearly that money puts people under pressure, as do relationships. And it brings out what we would call today DNA behaviors, but these natural hardwired behaviors that are deeply ingrained in us. It's almost, like we have a flip in some ways, and we go to these very innate behaviors and we make decisions at the flick of a button, if you want to call it that, very quickly in a certain way when we're triggered. And it just happens to be that stress and money causing stress and relationships causing stress are the trigger for that. And so I decided that if I was going to keep putting a tailor-made suit on all of my clients in terms of a custom experience, and remember, you've got husband and wives that you're advising and families, business partners, I needed to know more precisely how each person was different and how they would behave under pressure. And that's what led me to building the DNA systems. I had a chance meeting with a psychologist, and she's English and she lives in Australia now. Still, at the time, we met in Sydney, and she showed me that this was people's natural hardwired behavior and money is triggering it. And so I thought, I'm going to build a system to do that. And then I started, and she introduced me to a person in Atlanta, and I came over here 40 times in 4 years. As I was saying to you, Charly, I invested in another business. It sort of gave me the gateway to get into America and some of the relationships I needed. And, it went from there and I decided to stay here. But I think bringing it back to our audience, what I do on a day in, day out basis is I help business owners, business leaders understand themselves in terms of how they're hardwired in terms of their behavior, and this is set from very early in life, what their strengths and struggles are for themselves so they can maximize their own performance, but then also to be able to look at the differences across their team, get everybody in the right slots. How do they manage themselves to perform? Because sometimes, depending on the size of the business, people are doing things that they're not good at doing, or don't, they're detailed people, but they're being asked to talk to a client. Maybe that's not the best thing, or they're really good at clients and they shouldn't be doing any detailed type work, whatever it is, or someone should be selling and they're not selling very well. Well, they haven't got the competitive streak to do it, whatever that is. But also our difference with this is, Charly, is that money is a factor in how people behave, and people's financial behavior is wrapped up in every business decision. So we've learned how to distill that down to show people the pathway to making good decisions, with recognizing not only talents but also financial behaviors. And so that's sort of in a nutshell what we do.
It's an awful lot there to drill down on. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. So just to sort of summarize some of that. Yeah, I'm really, really on point today, team. Let's say you're an Australian who has moved over to the US. You've been there for several years. You were an accountant to start with, but wanted to do more. But in able to do more, you had to get this system together, and that system became the more that you did, by the sounds of it, in some ways.
Yeah, I think that it's sort of why I call myself a reformed accountant, because while by nature, I suppose, I'm very much a numbers person, and a lot of people look at me that way and pretty rational and coming up with solutions. But I also had to learn as a leader early on in my career, even in the big accounting firm, managing a lot of different people, and I lived in Southeast Asia, so I had to manage people in different cultures. Success, and then coming to America, building a business, you bring on different employees, you've got different clients. The difference between success and failure is how you manage yourself and how you manage other people. And in a way, if you want to get better results, being sort of thinking it that way, you've got to learn how to build better relationships. And you've got to learn how to relate to people on their terms. And so that's the premise of this. And we're today in a world of personalization. If you want a proposal to be solved, you've got to package it up the way in which the client wants to hear it. It just doesn't work if you do it the same for every person. So it's the same as a leader. You've got a certain style. If you treat every employee on your team the way you are, you're going to fail. And that's just the fact. So you've got to learn in whatever way you want to think of this. You've got to learn how to manage differences and manage different talents, communicate differently, show empathy at the right time, compassion when it's needed. And that's really what we do. But I look at it from, it's not just woo-woo stuff here. This is the tough stuff in business, is the soft skills and how you manage that to ultimately, though, get a better result.
Look, you are absolutely correct. And there was something you said in your intro there about when you were an accountant, you had to do your reports up, and literally you're writing 3 or 4 different reports that you're all putting together so that you could not appeal to, so that people who consumed that information in different ways could actually consume it and understand it. Really hit home for me. I was a salesperson in another lifetime. I was a salesperson. And I sold into government, and it was really important that we as the bid team understood who our target audience was. And if anyone has ever dealt with government, you are not selling to one person, you are selling to a structure of people. You may not actually know the people that you're dealing, who are going to be assessing it. So we had to write at very different levels. We had to write to the technical level. We had to write to the secretary level. We had to write to the middle manager level. And we had to learn how to do that. So that really for me, and just to sort of bring that one all the way through, I had one of my clients ask me not too long ago, how do I write my proposals so that people will take them? I've got some people who want detail and some people who don't. I said, well, you need to write that into your proposal. Your proposal needs to cover that. You need to have the summary up front and the detail at the back. And so that, like I said, that really hit home to me. So tell me about DNA in business, and tell me, as a business owner, someone, let's say we've been in business for a while, we've got a team going, and stress levels are up. This time of year is a really good time to talk about it because the stress levels are up. There's a lot of work. Everyone's getting to the end of the year. They're saying, we want to finish the year out. We've got all these projects to do. We are looking at our bottom lines going, oh, it's getting tight again. We really need to get that money through the door. We've got our family saying, come on, it's Christmas time. We need to spend family time. We've got all the parties going on. We've got all this kids stuff going on. What are the sorts of things a business owner, or you would advise a business owner, and how does your system help business owners handle all of this?
Well, and you know, the answer is not a magic bullet sort of from the answer, but if I look at it and said, you know, you're a business owner and take a step back, and maybe Christmas time is a good time to do that, right? When you're not quite as pressured with the work part and you're having a little bit of time on the beach or going for walks or whatever you do, but is to really look at what is your X factor. What is the one thing that you can do in the world that you're the best at, that other people can't do as well, that really makes the difference for you personally? You love doing it, and you can do that in the business. And is to really, and that somewhere is sort of the intersection of your talents, which is what we measure with our system, so that you're much stronger strengths. And then what is you passionate about? And you put those two together and you look at what are you great at doing and you love to do. And when you get clarity of that, then look at everything that goes on in the business and have it all delegated. And now that might take you, you know, a couple of years to do, but the more you center yourself on that, you're going to find it mentally easier to step into work each day saying, okay, I'm on a track now that over the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, I'm going to start delegating this set of tasks, whether it's to another person in the business, to AI, right? So I think that's now something that's going to hit every business. How can all this series of tasks just get done by AI? Or how can I empower one of my team to be better at AI so they do it all for me? And so I sort of look at it as, you know, some of you listening today might you know, I'll tell this in a story. Sarah Blakely, who was the founder of Spanx, and built a very big business. And, you know, Sarah had 4 kids, husband was pretty energetic and busy out there, you know, very busy life, you know, in many ways, complex life, right? Running but a big business. But the main thing she did was she was the dressmaker, if you want to call it that, in Spanx. So she made sure the product design always fitted the culture of Spanx, right? So she might have a team of designers, but that was her role. And that's what she would come into the office to check. And then she delegated everything else. And I think that's what the business owners need to think about it. That's why in our business, I call myself a behavioral solutions architect. I'm not the one out there doing all the facilitations, piecing together our technology, which is pretty extensive. But I'm the one that can sit there with a client and connect the dots between their vision and dream of where they want to go and what's the solution that's needed to do it. And then sometimes that's only an hour or two's work. But my team, then if they're on the phone calls and everything, or listen to all the recordings, it can disseminate the rest and do everything else. And I find now that, to be honest, the number of emails I get each day isn't very many. If you peel away the junk emails, which go straight to a junk folder, I might only get 5 emails or 10 emails in a day, but we're running a fairly large business because I've got everything centered on the one thing I'm good at doing, and the rest is off somewhere else. And I think if you come in with that mentality, even though you may not be there on day one, you can't just go and change everything in one go, but you can head that path. What you're going to also do is empower everybody else in the business to step up and give them an opportunity. And in a way, as the owner, some days, maybe you sit in the office or outside the office and you look around the room and you have nothing to do. Maybe that's a good thing, but everything else is happening. That'll help bring clarity. Maybe don't have an office, right, inside your office, so that there can't be any clutter and shit for you to deal with, right? Not hearing every phone call. That was something I learned to do, was not to have an office, right? Now I have an office at home, and I've got all my, my wife would say it's cluttered because I've got pictures up and things that I like that sort of make me comfortable in life. But it's pretty simple what's around me, right? And what I do, and I think that's, hopefully I'm sort of bringing the picture together of the way to approach this.
Yeah, look, you absolutely are, and I love that whole, what is it you're good at? That's what you need to focus on in your business, and get other people to do the other work. I hate bookkeeping. I hate it. I would happily get someone to do my bookkeeping without even blinking an eye. Like, just get it done. Tell me when my tax is due. Tell me that you've done it. I will review it, and then we will submit it. That's the way I want to handle that, because that's noise to me. That doesn't help me do what I do, and it's not what I do best.
Yeah, and I think Charly, there's ways to do this and once you figure that out and you look at the people around you, you look at the product, okay, who are your ideal clients? I think then you look at that and say, well, these clients are good clients because they meet our value set, they're respectful, they're buying the services we want to sell. And then you've got some clients over on the other side that not respectful, don't meet the value set, and guess what? They're not paying you a lot of money, and it costs you more oxygen and time and money and whatnot to serve. Okay, maybe part of this is you chop them out, and you apply some of the 80-20 rule to your business. It's amazing when you do that, what you can start to achieve. It takes some courage to do those things, and that's why I'm saying perhaps do it in a quiet time. But I think that's the method of thinking. You're looking at how you block your calendar out is another thing, so that you're not. I don't think you want to be inflexible, right? Because if a client comes in and you've got to meet them. But you can set things up so that you can manage your life to some degree, right? And I think that's all part of it, particularly for a working mum that's got kids coming home in school holidays. There's other responsibilities that maybe some of the males don't have, depending on how everything's set up. I'm not meaning to be sexist in any of that. It's just the way in which how do households and couples run their lives. You've got to manage your time, right? And it will never always be perfect, but there are ways to do that, I think. But if you have that mindset of what am I great at doing, and you stick with it, and you be the culture king inside your business, or culture queen, then you can let a lot of other things go on around you. But you can't go to sleep on it either. You've got to watch it too.
You have to be actively involved in it. You actually have to actively manage that process.
Actively engaged, cannot be absentee landlord, but that doesn't mean you have to be doing everything.
Correct. Yeah, you've got to be, well, I'm going to call it's kind of like being the puppet master. You need to make sure all the things are running, and yes, that's running, and that's going, and I'm now going to go and do this, and then come back and check it. Once you've done that, come back and check it. So can we just dig down a little? We spoke about what we can do for ourselves and how we can manage ourselves.
Yeah.
Then we spoke about delegating. How do we make sure that we get the right people for our team to do this? Because you've used the term culture there a couple of times, and this is about an organizational culture. You can bring someone into your business that doesn't meet your organizational culture. In fact, one of the things we were speaking about before we started the recording was, for me, was I want people who work with my businesses and who I introduce to other businesses that want our success. Like, I work with businesses because I want those businesses to be successful, which gives a very different feel to our relationship. So how do we do this within our own businesses?
So I think so there's a couple of steps here. I think the first thing is, then once you sort this out for yourself, is, one of the things is actually to define the culture of your business. And lots of people talk about culture, which is good, but they don't know really what it means. And I think that in some ways, the culture could be looked at as what's the atmosphere in the business, in terms of the energy, the experience, the way people are being treated. But it's also why your business is different. So what are the processes and the way things are done, starting with you as the leader, that make your business different? And you land the plane on that, and then you decide what the atmosphere is going to be in your business in terms of, is it going to be more of an empathy-based relationship culture inside, connections, or innovation focused, whatever it is. Get that straight, and then look at the culture in terms of the product and how does that shape up, what products work, what products don't, what's your ideal client, and how are your processes working in terms of the client experience. Because I think, if I step into a business, the first question I'm going to ask the team is, how are your clients responding to what you're doing right now? And where's the gap and where's the problem? There probably might be some different views of that. You could even go and do net promoter scores, do reviews of what the clients are thinking and feeling. It will all, at the end of the day, when you get that answer, it will work back to what's the employee experience, right? Because if the client experience is then bad in a particular area, it will be because the employee experience is not right. You got square peg in a round hole. Somebody's not enthused about you as the leader, whatever it is, there's the misfit, and it's then flowing through back to the client. It all works in a circle. But once you have those things sorted out, you can then say, okay, what roles do I need? And what type of person needs to, from a talents perspective, not just skills, but talents and skills, competencies, needs to fill that role. And that might be not the person that's doing it, and that's where I come back to in the customer service areas where often these things fall apart, is it's the wrong person in there, but he or she might be a really good person and they could do some good stuff somewhere else in the business. It's not all about firing. It's about getting the round pegs in round holes, getting the job definitions right. And I think where the business owners and the leadership teams fail is really defining the roles properly that are going to then make the business work for the product that they want to sell. But there's no point in doing all of that if you haven't got the culture defined and the product defined that's going to work for your business.
So I say, really, I mean, you're talking about
massive wrong people selling something that just doesn't work for the business. Well, that makes no sense. Now, none of this is easy, but you can methodically work through that. And I think it starts off with asking the clients or customers some questions.
Okay, awesome. So what I hear also there is you need to know what your own values are for your business. You need to know what your principles and your values and your mission statement is. And I hate using those terms in terms of business because, yeah, they're every word that comes to mind at the moment is not pleasant. I'm just trying to find that word.
And I think they're words that people don't really understand very well, right?
Yes.
And
It's been overblown. It has been overblown and it's been abused. And I'm really, really careful when I say to someone, well, what is your mission statement? Because, that's not a mission statement. That's just words on a page that you don't actually believe in. So what is it you believe in? What is it you want to do? And yeah, I went through this process recently when I was rebranding and redoing my website. What are my values? What are the values that I actually believe in and I want my staff to take on as well? So I can have my own personal values and that's fine, but trying to impose them on my staff is really difficult. So I had to really step back and work out what that was. So that sounds like
that's a very, that point's very interesting in that the company can have a set of values, right, that may be fairly aligned to the founder's values. That's going to be a reality. But when employees come, you can't expect them to change their values. But it's important, you can't just step in and have them change their values. So it's important to understand what their values are coming in, right? And are they then going to be a fit for the business, as opposed to you're going to try and change somebody on their values? That's not going to work. And you might have in your business, within your culture, a very defined way of doing things that works for your business and the clients love it. But if somebody comes in and that's just not in their value set, you can't change that, and they'd be better not being there, right? And on the other side, you can't as a company change your values to fit a particular person. But the clarity of the values is important, and one of the things that we've always emphasized in our business, because we do, behavioral profiles of people using our system. When I built the system, and it was a lot of the time, it was initially to work as a wealth manager with my clients, I basically laid down the principle of what we called knowing me, knowing you, Charly, I was going to never give this to a client if I wasn't prepared to show them mine first. And so why did I do that? And I now understand that better than maybe when I first laid that out, but it was all about trust. It was about being authentic. If I'm going to be your leader as the client advisor for the financially for the family and the mentor, you needed to know something about me, right? The conversation isn't about me, but you need to know where I am, and I am eating my own pudding. And it's the same in the team. I said this to a CEO of a pretty large company the other day. I said, look, you want to build a connection culture in your business, but if you're not prepared to complete your own profile and show your leadership team at least who you are and what your strengths and struggles are, don't even bother. And our service, we won't deliver it. And I won't provide it to financial advisors either that want to use it just to get a read on a client, but not properly share it with their clients, because it's all about building a psychologically safe culture. And that's the thing that we are really bringing with DNA to help an organization and a leader do at the end of the day. Yes, we can measure up talents and we can help you ask a question of a client, but what's going to make it stick is you have a psychologically safe culture. And employees won't stay working with you if it's not psychologically safe, and the clients won't be there, particularly in a service business, if it's not psychologically safe.
So you mentioned to me the biggest word there, the most important word when you are trying to build a business and get clients in and have a good team, and that's trust. If you cannot trust each other, then it's a house of cards. It's going to take one thing to collapse, and it will collapse the lot. So building that trust relationship is a very, very important thing. Now, if you don't mind, I just want to sort of pivot very quickly, and I'm sure we'll come back to some of these other things. You also mentioned the customers and making sure your customers align with your values. Yeah. The thing that you said, which I loved, was maybe that customer isn't a good fit for you and maybe they shouldn't be your customer. I know in the think it's 17 years. Yes, 17 years I've been doing this. There's been a number of customers I've said, look, I'm sorry, we're not a fit. I can't help you.
Yep.
You are going to be better off finding someone else. And some of them I've actually said, look, I can't recommend anyone to you because I don't know who would be a fit for that client. And I didn't. It's in some ways you want to say, I don't want to inflict that client on someone else.
Yeah, well, and that's fair enough.
It's not a fair statement because someone else has a very different approach. And then I have to me and say, look, this client came to me. You didn't recommend them, but they've seen that you've worked with me. They came to me and they're a great fit. They work really well. I'm like, I would not have thought that, but there you go. So it is important to understand that not all clients are going to be your customers. You need to really understand what your target audience is, what the profile of the people that you're working with within that target audience is, to make sure that you get a really cohesive, and honestly, it's a magical work environment when you work with your clients in that way.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you've got to be in a working environment where you love your customers. For the people they are and for what they do, that there's, I suppose, the three words we use: understanding, acceptance, and respect. They don't have to be the same as you, but we all respect each other's differences. They've got a strong foundation. You like the way in which they go about doing business or life, right? That's a fit for your business. And then, then it's easier for your employees to shape up and serve them. Because there's got to be respect, if the clients don't show respect to the employees, you've got a big problem, and obviously the other way around, and that's why both have got to be engaged, right? And there just are people that are just not a fit for what you're doing, and it might be because the product's wrong, or it might be just because the service experience you want to deliver is not right, or the technology or whatever it is, whatever that is identified, and then I suppose farm them out in a respectful way to somebody where they can get what they need.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to remember there is that as long as you handle this well, most clients will go, that was really well done. It wasn't going to work with us. If you can give a recommendation, that's the best way of handling it. But they may actually say to someone, look, try this person. They're really honest. They're honest about whether they can work with you or not. And you'll get something out of that. And that honesty goes an awful long way.
Yeah, and I think obviously the earlier you can figure these things out, the better. I mean, when we're all starting a business, you take on anybody that will pay you $1 and breathes. And then as the business grows, things change, right? You go from business plan A to business plan G, and things change, or somebody doesn't get the same access to you as the leader anymore. There's a million reasons why things don't work out, but that's what it is. And I think, as you said, you just got to respectfully handle that. But the clearer you get as you go along with who you will accept or not accept, the better off everybody is.
Absolutely. Now, again, you made a really valid point there. When you're first starting out, you'll take anyone who breathes and has $1. By all means, it's important to know who your target audience is. It's important to know all of these things, but you've also got to balance that, I think, with, well, we need to get the money through the door. We do need to have business coming through the door. You're not going to be in business if you don't have customers. And sometimes you have to accept less than ideal to keep yourself going. But as things start to get going, that's when you can start to raise your own quality bar, your own bar of what you will and won't accept.
I think that's right. I think that also, Charly, plays into the price that you charge. I think people, when they're starting out with a new business, tend to can either overcharge and just charge your way out of not having anything, which is what you're alluding to, or you can undercharge, and then it becomes a profitability issue to be able to actually deliver the experience you want to. But there is a medium in there where you've got to charge something that's hopefully enough and deliver some experience and test out what you've got, refine the processes, get better and better. And, there are situations where going for the ride with the client and the client going for the ride with you is a good thing.
Absolutely. I love that. Now, do you want to tell us a little bit more about this system that you've developed, how it works, how small business might be able to take advantage of it? How does it all work?
Yeah, so our system works, it's a technology platform. You can buy a subscription for us. That's how we generally use it. So it's an annual arrangement, and people complete a profile online. So you get a link, and you give it to your employees and your clients or customers, if you like, family members, and they go in online, spend 10 minutes answering a very structured questionnaire. It's a bit unusual. You're choosing most and least like between 3 words and then leaving the middle word out. It's words like you choose between aspiring, patient, and detailed. Which one are you the most of those, and which one are you the least? We're all different. And you do that in combinations. And then we produce reports, we produce data analytics that you get immediately online, that you can then start to, understand your own strengths and struggles out of, but also to look at the team makeup. We've got AI sitting in the system there as well to help you interpret it, use it. So, there's a plethora of insights depending on what you want to do. That's generally how it works. And so, but now our business model is in the process of changing, where we're adding to this what we call a digital scan, so that we are now deploying AI. AI can actually complete the assessment for you, so the person doesn't have to do it. It's not as accurate through AI, but it's a first step. If you want to get a read on people analytically, we can do that with a digital scan. And so we've got a number of our clients are migrating to this way in which they go through the profile up front, then they use a digital scan, get a read on the team, get a read on their clients, and then they decide what to do, who goes through the profile. So if that sort of gives you an idea of how this works.
Do you mind if I ask just a little bit about the AI scan? When you say they do a scan, what does it do? Look at social media profiles, looks at essays?
It looks at public data sources, but yes, there might be social media in there, YouTube's, public announcements that get made, depending on the person. But nearly for most people, there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. And
so we're pulling in that and assimilating it enough to answer the questionnaire.
So this is the tech in me, and this is the scientist in me going, have you done tests to see, and I'm sure you have, I'm interested to see what the AI scans from the public profile and then get someone to answer the questions?
Yeah.
A lot of difference. Have you found that you get some variation there?
So we're getting about, so when people complete the assessment themselves, which is the most accurate way, the scientific reliability factor of that is 97.1%. So it's very strong. But that's what took me 20 years of time building that, going backwards and forwards from Sydney to Atlanta, etc., working with several universities, specialists, whatever. And, we perfected that, and we've put that through, over 3 million people now. So we know that works really well. And then with the digital scan, we worked on this for quite a long time before we actually went commercial on it, but we're getting between 75 and 80% accuracy.
Okay. That would track for me. The reason I ask is that I am fairly convinced that most people have a persona that they put out into the world, and that differs once you actually get to know someone.
And it's a bit masked, so that someone might be a, how would I put it? Well, let's just so someone might be very hardcore in their real life and the way they operate, but they've put teddy bear type language out there in YouTube's and social media postings that almost makes it look like that they're a kindergarten type teacher, you know, the opposite. That's no disrespect to them, but the opposite type person. That can happen, but there's a lot of factors that we're looking at that peel that away, if that makes sense.
When you said 75 to 80%,
so the BS factor is getting sorted out. Put it that way.
I love that statement. But when you said 75 to 80%, I thought that it struck me as a more realistic number if you were just going to go and scan things. Because sometimes you will pick it up. You will pick it up. But I do like the hardcore versus the teddy bear. That was where I was trying to get to. Some people
and the 75 to 80% is good enough. If I was hiring someone, I wouldn't rely on that, right? I'd want them to complete the full assessment. But let's say I'm making a scan of, there's 100 people out there that I'm considering employing, or I am prospecting for sales, and I want to know my prospecting base. How am I going to customize some communication to them to make them feel more warm towards me? Well, they're not going to go and complete the assessment up front. But if you did the digital scan on them, you now know a little bit more about them. And you can modify how you're going to work with them in the initial stages, and it be reasonably good.
Yeah, well, it also, if you're looking at 100 people, you know which 10 you want to go and interview, or which 5 you want to go and interview, and go through that process. It does make thinning that out much easier. That makes heaps of sense to me.
And that's the paradigm shift that I think we're bringing to the world right now, is that this can be done by a digital scan in this way and still get all the insights and richness that we have in our system. And it's a big shift for us because we've been landlocked. Even though we've grown as a business steadily, we've been landlocked to people having to complete the assessment. Now we can go out there and do it mass scale.
Awesome.
Which plays into your point before. How do you work in your X factor, make life more comfortable for yourself, easier for yourself? It's, you know, this is all part of it.
Yeah, your X factor, or you built your X factor, which is cool.
I've had to do it myself, right? Absolutely.
Okay, so sorry, I'm just trying to think, because we've covered an awful lot, and we've done you've given so much information. I'm just trying to disseminate and make sure I dig down and make sure I get the information, get good questions out of this. I guess, can you give me, and I'm going to put you on the spot, I think, and I'm sorry for doing this. Can you give me an example of where this type of approach hasn't worked exceptionally well, and why didn't it?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's not as hard as I thought you might go on me. I would say where it hasn't worked, so there's a few areas. It hasn't worked when the leaders of the business, so starting at the CEO and the very top level of the business, are completely closed to the power of people and building a relationship culture. So when everybody would say, okay, yeah, people are important. They're the people's greatest, they're the business's greatest assets. That's lip service. But how are you demonstrating that in your culture? And so those that are not demonstrating it in their culture, this tends to be where this doesn't work. It's like I was talking to a client today, and he used to be in the venture capital world, and he got out of the venture capital world because somebody on the team died, and they went and told the CEO, and the CEO said, are we still going to make our numbers this month? Right? So, that's a very raw example, but it's a case of what we're bringing in to humanize a business, but still to increase its profitability. It's not going to work, right? If it's a business that's just totally focused on the products and not worrying about the customer service, probably not going to work, right? in the wealth management space where we've done a lot of work, and that's half our client base, getting a financial advisor, they might go through it themselves, but then to give it to the client, they may not want to go there because they don't want to have to, the advisor doesn't really want to have to confront themselves. So the people that don't want to confront themselves tend to run away from this, right? Yeah, it's interesting, Hugh, but I'm not going to do that, right? My clients won't want to do it. Whereas there's actually, in the 24 years we've done this, there'd be a handful of clients, either of mine or of our clients who have rejected the whole thing, right? The idea of doing it. Because the reason, most people at the end of the day want to be understood, and they like to talk about themselves. And this is a very easy way to make that happen. Now, is it an unusual approach to profile somebody and then share your profile with them? Yeah, that's not normally done. People don't make themselves that vulnerable. But when you do, magic happens in terms of the word, the trust word that you talked about before, right? It changes relationships between husband and wives, where there's often a lot of problems around money. Now they see why that problem's coming up and they can have a more honest conversation about it, right? That's respectful rather than just blaming each other. Well, gee, you're a spender, or you're taking too many risks, or you work too hard or whatever. They now see where it comes from. That then leads to the change of, okay, what are you going to go and do about it? That's where it's successful. But I think that hopefully I've given you a few cases where people are potentially closed. I think also when businesses are extremely successful, they've been churning out their product, their solution, everything's going okay. And I'd say, well, why do I need to do that right now?
Yeah.
Well, more than ever right now you do, because the right employees are valuable. Hanging on to clients is ever more important. And there's a lot of innovation coming, and you're going to need to know how to master all of that. And so, what's worked now isn't going to work in the future. And so you've got to be prepared to reinvent yourself around your X factor and your business. And this is a way to do that.
So I'm thinking on it. I think the biggest one I got out of that is people don't want to confront themselves. And
usually, yep,
going to manifest itself in so many ways in their life, not just where we're talking about, but it will manifest itself in so many ways in their life. Have you had people who've actually gone through and done this, and then said, yes, we're going to make the changes, we're going to work on it, and then not done that?
Yeah, I mean, that does happen. And I think that people get stuck in their daily routines and don't make changes. Change is hard. I think that, again, I sort of follow the Tiny Habits principle. There's a book called Tiny Habits.
Great book.
Yeah, and people need to, there needs to be, you need to set goals, but you need to, I look at set tiny goals and do things that you enjoy. If you want to make a change in your life or in your business, start with something small that's easy, that you enjoy, that's going to, maybe if it works, have a good result, and keep on building from that. Whereas if you step in and say, okay, I've listened to Hugh talk, great message, love all of that, and now we're going to go out tomorrow and profile all of our teams, all of our clients, we're going to do A, B, C, D, you start to find, well, that's a monumental goal, right? It's too big. I haven't got time to do it. Then they realize I haven't got time to do all that. Whereas there are baby steps that can be done with this. This is, what I've talked about today is I tried to sort of allude with even just working on your X factor. It's probably a 3-year thing. Break it all down, right? But be heading down that direction, and you'll find it'll just take a head of steam. And if you believe in it, and you open yourself up, you'll find that there will be employees and clients on your team that want to get around you and support you with it.
Yeah, and you're actually going to start, I believe you will start attracting those people, because you're going to be knowing what you're looking for to begin with, and you're going to see them.
Your behavior changes, therefore the behavior of the people around you change. If you want to change the energy in your business, you got to change your own energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, you know, we've all got different levels of people as people who are our preparedness to trust and to open up. I am more one of the closed people in the world, but this has helped me open up, right? Because I've now got a pretty safe, neutral vehicle. It's science-based. It's very objective, and it speaks the truth. And other people can look at it and say, yeah, that's you. And then they can look at my wife, whatever, that's Jennifer. That's true. And you work with it. You work with it in your own paradigm. You know, I've got the right people in my business that believe in the culture, and they help me manage the relationships in the business, right? But if I don't treat them the right way, I can sure as hell know that the relationships won't work down the line, right, in the business.
Yeah.
And with the clients, right? So that's the trust point, right?
Okay, so we've spoken a lot about business because that's my focus, particularly for this podcast. But you did mention families and couples, so this is also available outside of your business as well.
Yeah, we our business model is typically a B2B business. So we're training coaches, consultants, business leaders, financial advisors, and that's where it's getting down into the families. And there are some other, I suppose, business models we have, but the principles of this apply just as much in a family unit or between couples as it does in business. Equally.
I love that. I do really like that. Yeah.
You know, in a family, if the family leader's gone through this and he's then not prepared to share of himself with his wife and children, what do you think is going to happen in the family unit?
Yeah, it's not going to go. It's not going to go well.
No, you're not going to be able to have the money discussion, right? And you see, that's where money starts to come in, because you've got to have all that trust and understanding to deal with money, because money will follow all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, you know, it's about the time, and it's about, you mentioned, you know, we talk in terms of mums looking after the kids and mums running the kids around, but let's just say the parent that runs the kids around and the parent that looks after the kids. And if they don't trust that they're going to have that backup, that if they're having a bad day or things go wrong and they can say, I need help, that's not a great place to be. It's a terrible place to be, and the family will not work. The kids won't be happy. Mum and dad won't be happy.
I mean, humans are like cats. They can sense trouble anywhere. And if mum and dad aren't on the same page, then it just filters down and it leads to all sorts of things, right? And it's the same with the leader. If the leader and the number two in the business aren't on the same page, there's problems everywhere else. Or if the CEO's got a board, right, depending on the company structure, and they're at odds with each other, everything else doesn't work.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, and we see that a lot too, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Because people start working around each other, you know, hidden agendas come out, all the stuff, right? And everybody else knows, right?
And there's just so much spent in that adversarial situation, whereas that energy could actually be directed elsewhere. It just isn't.
It doesn't need to be that. If you have understanding, acceptance, and respect, you can nip a lot of it in the bud. And, you know, to share a story of how I used this very early on in the business, one day I was sitting there with a guy I'd hired, Gary, and, you know, this was in Australia. This is many years ago. The conversation took place in about 2001 or 2. We weren't long into doing the behavioral profiles. And I was brainstorming with Gary, sort of at the end of the day, 5 o'clock, offloading some ideas I've been thinking about for weeks. And Gary was similar to me in some ways, in analytical, but also very reflective person, needed a lot of more time to process ideas. You know, it's not about intellect, it's just the way he is.
Yep.
I'm bouncing all this stuff off him, and he's trying to absorb it, and he's coming back with, you know, contradictory thoughts. Or, Hugh, have you thought about this and that? And I'm thinking, gee, I just want to push on and do this, right? And he's giving me these reasons why we shouldn't, or have you thought about this? And I'm thinking, gee, that's going to take me years. That's going to slow me down. But anyway, you know, we had that conversation for about an hour and a half, and I went home that night so tired, couldn't eat dinner, whatever, right? Nothing bad was said, exchanged between the two of us. There was no arguments. I was energetically drained.
Yep.
I got to work the next day, and I think I was enough on the journey of understanding human energy I asked Gary, luckily I did. I asked him, I said, Gary, how did you feel when you were at home last night? He said, Hugh, I was so tired. Couldn't think, I couldn't watch TV, didn't want dinner, just went to bed. And I said, so Gary, do you think it was the conversation we had yesterday that was the cause of that? And he said it might have been. And I said, well, Gary, it was, right? And I pulled out our profiles and the strengths and struggles and the communication keys, and we went through it, right? Leader, COO type sort of level, we went through it. And there it was. He needed time to process ideas. Yep. And I said, okay, so what we're going to do is whenever I have these ideas in the future, I'm going to come and give them to you. You don't have to respond, and you can come back to me in 3-5 days a week, whatever we agree, and tell me what your thinking around it is. And I need to manage myself to handle it that way, and then you come back and respond, right? Or we'll set up a meeting to respond. And from that, we worked together for another 7 or 8 years, very successfully, no problems, because of that one conversation. And the only reason we don't work together today is because I spent so much time in America, and the energy just went. I had to shift. We shifted the office, and he came to me around that as well. He was very brave about it. But the thing is that if I hadn't have had that conversation and I stepped up as the leader, and I think that's also important, because I felt the energy wasn't right and I respected him enough. But if I hadn't have done that, I think within 6 months he would not have been working there.
Yep.
And it would have ended in disrespect and hatred, right?
I was going to say there'd be a high level of dissatisfaction.
It ended in respect and love. And we don't speak to each other as much as maybe I'd like to, but he has come to me a couple of times and I've gone to him and we've had barbecues and whatever together. That's a healthy relationship, right? And that's what you really want to have with every person. But the bullying comes and the problems come, either the bullying is outright just abuse when there's not understanding, acceptance and respect, or it comes in a more passive aggressive way, right? Both are equally bad, right? And it comes because some bad energy is created, and it's usually in a conversation. And this is why communication is so important to the building of trust and to getting these things out on the table, right? I mean, that's the real story of how you handle this stuff. But if you don't know it and haven't got a tool to have an objective conversation about it, you can't do it, right?
Yeah, well, and the other thing is you don't know what you don't know, and you need to know what you do. You need to learn what you don't know so you can work your way through it. But that's really, really good stuff. And I'm sure, I know I can point to a couple of times in my career, both as an employee and as a boss, where that's occurred, and you have no idea. You don't understand why it's like that. All you know is that it's a comfortable situation. There's nothing untoward. It's just not comfortable.
Yep.
Okay, so look, I'm looking at our time here. You have been very generous with your time. Would you like to tell us how people can find you and find out more about you?
So go to our website at dnabehavior.com. There's plenty of materials, resources. You can complete a trial profile there. There's all about me in there. There's lots of blogs, white papers, whatever you want to read. If you want to be a student of this, you can become that from there. Also in LinkedIn, I'm there, Hugh Massie in Atlanta. I'm the only one, so it's not going to be hard to find me. I'm not John Smith in every country of the world 10 times over or 100 times over. So they're probably the best places to find out more, and happy to engage on that basis.
Awesome. So I will have all of that information in the show notes today, guys. As I said, I'm very grateful for your time. You have been very generous with your time.
I've enjoyed it, Charlie. It's been a great conversation, to have, and hopefully, everybody's got some nuggets out today that they can, they can work with, whether they use our system or not. I think I've provided some good tips.
I think you've given me heaps to work with, and I should actually get some really good screen grabs out of this to use on our social media, which I think is
Good.
fantastic. What is the one thing that you'd like people to take away from everything we've spoken about today?
Well, I think that, I suppose there's a couple of things if I could sort of bundle it together. But, as you build a business, start small. You have a big dream, start small, finish big. And so I think too many people try to go at it too hard and fast. Focus on your X factor and always be building around that and never lose that, and keep your identities. So I think the other part of this that we didn't talk a lot about today is look at your identity and be act out the person you want to become, and always be working towards that. And everything else is going to grow. And that starts with knowing your X factor. And then, when making big decisions, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Just take a step back.
Nice.
Take a step back. Your intuition radar might be, like I think we all want to say that our intuition is strong. Your intuition is maybe not as strong as you think it is in first blush, particularly when you're emotional. Data check it a little bit, and then you'll find that your intuition radar is going to work even better.
Awesome. I like that. Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yep.
Good one to take in, especially this time of year. Good one to take in.
Absolutely. This is all the more important at this time of the year when everybody's going to party season and whatever, right?
And we're also going to go and, we're going to go and have to deal with family, and sometimes dealing with family is not all that easy. So check yourself before you.
Things might be better not said, right?
Awesome. Look, thank you so much. I just want to invite people across to my locals community. Being a business owner can be tough. Being a business owner who works remotely can get lonely and frustrating. I have my locals community to be a bit of a water cooler of old. Come along, join the community, join the discussions there. Have people that you can talk to, ask questions. You can ask questions of myself. I love sharing information. I love trying to help people. So come along and join us. AskCharlyLeetham.locals.com. If you can, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell.